5 Network. This is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for Open Line. Tonight's topic, I tell you what, it is a tough one, but it's one that we need to talk about. Our topic tonight is suicide prevention. As you can tell, I have a great panel here with me to kind of wade through this topic and really hopefully spread some education tonight and be a sounding board also to your calls. If you have a call, comment, question, the number's on the screen. Go ahead and give us a call. Taylor's in the back. He'll line those up for us. But let me introduce you to our guest tonight. We have Scott Ridgway with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network and Dr. Adele Lewis with the Tennessee Department of Health, a medical examiner working in education now, and also Joanne Purley with the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. Thank you all for coming in.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Unfortunately, Tennessee is hitting records and all the wrong kind of records when it comes to suicide. Scott, can you tell us kind of where we are right now?
Well, where we are right now is that in 2016, which is the latest numbers that are reported by the Department of Health, we have reached the highest numbers of suicides that are reported, and it seems to be that right now in Tennessee we lose 3 Tennesseans to suicide each day. And one suicide is one suicide too many.
It certainly is. So we've lost, I think last year was 1,110 people.
Yes, ma'am.
In just a year. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of families who are left to mourn.
Right. And those are the ones that are reported. And there are some folks, there are some deaths that are not reported suicides for reasons that are, there's not enough evidence that proves it could be ruled an accident. There may not be a toxicology report where there might be an overdose. Mm-hmm. And so, and we're appreciated that Dr. Lewis's office and appreciate the administration and Dr. Dreisner and the health department spearheaded this division within the medical examiner's office. And she might want to talk about how they're working with medical examiners across the state to focus on reporting deaths.
Yeah, Dr. Lewis, and I'm going to preface this with you have a cold.
I'm a little croaky.
So, but you're going to talk because you know this is an important issue to talk about, and that's what you're doing across the state right now, talking with other medical examiners about suicide. Why?
Exactly. So the role of the state chief medical examiner is to provide education and support to the county medical examiners, and that had been somewhat neglected in the past, and Dr. Dreisner really committed to this office, and we're fully staffed now with 2 full-time forensic pathologists and 2 death investigators, and we're purely administrative, providing education, providing support, rewriting the guidelines for death investigation, and really trying to enhance reporting of all deaths across the state.
Some would say, why is it so important that we know if a death is suicide or not? Why does it matter?
Well, I think it's very important for the families. Mm-hmm. And so when someone that dies, whether they die by a car accident or a heart attack, families want to know what happened. And so it has closure. It helps families understand what happened. And so working with those medical examiners, working with folks that are doing the investigation helps the family determine the closure of what those deaths are. And so being able to work with those medical examiners to help them and educate them that it might be important to go ahead and order a toxicology report to determine if that is an overdose. Mm-hmm. And trying to figure out was it an accident or was it possibly suicide.
That must be, I mean, it's a mystery in a lot of cases, right? And you really do have to do that investigation. Why are some of these investigations not happening right now or haven't in the past?
Well, in a lot of the counties, there's a lack of people to do the investigations. In every county, there's a medical examiner who's a doctor appointed by the mayor, and they are charged with investigating unusual, suspicious, or unnatural deaths. Many times they will use investigators, and typically those are their EMS personnel. In some small counties, they don't have enough people. Mm-hmm. Many of the counties, 25% of the counties, that office is completely unfunded.
Wow.
So they don't have any resources whatsoever. These county medical examiners are also full-time doctors who have a practice with living people.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of lack of funding, lack of education. It's difficult for us to get everybody sent for autopsy who needs to be sent, it would really break the bank for a lot of these places.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to backpedal a little bit, and I want to make sure that we make it clear during the show. We're going to talk about suicide prevention and warning signs that you can look for, and also things that you can do if you suspect that a loved one or a friend might commit suicide or has told you they want to commit suicide. We're also going to be giving the suicide prevention number throughout the show. So go ahead and grab your pen and paper and write that down. It is staffed 24 hours a day, every single day of the year. So it is important to have, maybe just put it in your cell phone. You just never know when you're going to need it. And Joanne, I was wondering if you can tell me, I know there is not, there's no common theme in people who commit suicide. It really, ranges everything, age, race, the socioeconomic factor. What do you see when you guys look at suicides as a whole?
Definitely. I mean, it's really looking at those warning signs that we see, that those who may be in crisis and those who may be having thoughts of suicide exhibit before their attempt or death by suicide. And it's looking for thoughts of and mentions of death, a focus on death, and changes from that individual's norm. So perhaps stockpiling pills and whatever that might be for that individual, and just paying attention to our loved ones and making sure that they're able to stay safe in a time of crisis.
I know one thing, when as a reporter, when I was out on the streets daily doing stories, I've reported on suicide before, and someone told me, don't be afraid to ask someone if you're thinking about suicide. It's like the word that nobody wants to say, because it's like if you speak it, then it becomes true.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Correct.
I mean, we've really got to get over that barrier.
Yes, we really do, because I think what happens is so many times people think that if we ask the question, that all we're doing is planting that. And what we need to understand is that we're not planting that in there. What we're doing is we're opening up the line of communication. It reduces their anxiety, because what happens is if I feel comfortable about asking you the question, are you thinking about suicide, then it will relieve them, that it may make them feel comfortable about answering you. So do not feel uncomfortable about asking the question. And so please, please. And we have free training. The Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network has trainers all over the state. We have trainers, close to 200 trainers that will train in the community, and we have a place on our website that you can request those trainings. And not only that, is we also have close to 75 trainers that are in higher education institutions across the state that can train in a college campus or a 2-year school. So those are available free anywhere across the state.
I'm sure you would tell me that anybody can get trained who has interest. Are there particular people in particular positions that you think it's vitally important who are trained?
Well, I think it's important that everyone's trained. I think if everyone was, everyone's trained in CPR, and we have a training that's called QPR, question, persuade, refer, it would be great if every Tennessean was trained. Last year, the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network trained close to 18,000 Tennesseans in some type of evidence-based curriculum. And so just training folks is very important. Tennessee is one of the most progressive states as it relates to suicide prevention, thanks to Clark Flatt with the Jason Foundation. In 2007, Tennessee was the first state to pass legislation that required school teachers and counselors to have 2 hours of suicide prevention training on an annual basis. Just recently, 2 years ago, the Jarrett's Law was an amendment of the Jason Flatt Act. And it was passed just to require now all school staff to have 2 hours. And so the Ken and Madge Tellis Act of 2016 was passed just recently, and we're working with all the licensure boards within the Department of Health, and that requirement will take effect in 2020, which will require licensure folks to be able to have 2 hours every 2 years also. So, we are just looking at different ways that we can get folks trained. And so the groups that we're really looking at now are, that middle age male. It's hard to reach that group, but looking at the construction industry, tapping into some of those trade organizations. We're working right now with the Tennessee Realtors Association. We're working with the SHRM group. So, trying to reach out to many as organizations as possible. We want to reach you as much as you call us. We're working with churches, faith leaders, and so forth. And so it's important that, TSPN.org is not ESPN, as I say. TSPN,
that's a good way to remember, though,
right.
TSPN.
Especially right now in football season. Yeah.
All right, well, a lot to talk about over this next hour, and of course we want to talk to you as well. If you have a comment or a question that you would like to share with us, go ahead and give us a call during the break. 615-737-PLUS. That is 7587. We're coming right back after this.